I'm out, boys. You guys got ammo? They're coming, and they're coming fast.
Okay, go hit the mystery box.
The what?
Dog, look up in the sky, find the light, put your money in, hit the box.
Well, you guys better cover me. I swear to God, if you get me killed. Bruh. Come on, let's go. Yes! It's the same thing!
Now go take it to the pack-a-punch!
A pack-a-punch! Oh my God.
When everything's been dragging you down, grabbed you by the hair, pulled you to the ground. If you wanna get up, you need a little revival. If you wanna get up, you need a little revival. When everything's been dragging you down, grabbed you by the hair, pulled you to the ground. If you wanna get up, you need a little revival. If you wanna get up, you need a little revival.
Oh, hey. See you again. Listen, Cody Curry here, guys. I want to tell you about a friend of the channel. It's Badlands Munitions Company. Guys, with code 110SASS, we now get 10% off all ammunition, no matter what you buy. They have 308, 5.56, 9mm. They got match ammo. They got plinking ammo. They got competition 9mm ammo. Whatever you buy, guys, 10% off with code 110SASS. It's made right here in the United States. It's American made. What else could be better? Enjoy. Come on, let's go. Yes!
Ladies and gentlemen, horses and horsettes, we are back. We are back on our bullshit. Yes, sir! Guys, today we have another legendary weapon of World War II that has been sent through the pack-a-punch. So if this is your first time here at the channel, we welcome you to 110 SASS Actual and welcome aboard the shit show. If you clicked on this because you were like, I need to know what that guy's major malfunction is, well, I'm gonna tell you, it is a major malfunction. I'm gonna know, I've risen with that tism, baby. But if you are a regular viewer first, thank you, I appreciate you. I even love you. I'm in love with you. If not in that super stalker kind of way, but I don't know, maybe like the, you know, the honeymoon phase where you're just obsessed with each other. I don't know. Anyways, thank you. I appreciate your support, kings and queens. Guys, this channel's blown up and I cannot thank you enough for the support. And the support that you guys give me gives me the chance to do stuff like this and just do off the walls, just original stuff that I love. This is the kind of stuff that just makes me so happy. And it's not because I want to upset people. No, I have zero intentions of upsetting people. If you get upset, well, I don't know, maybe stay off the internet. It's a very dangerous place with people with thin skin. So I would suggest you stay off there. The reason I do it, why do you do it, baby Billy? Well, because I'm selfish. No, it's not, it's not because of that. Here's the thing. We all grew up around these firearms. We grew up around Saving Private Ryan. We grew up around games like Medal of Honor, where all of these iconic World War II firearms were used. And they just have this charm about them. There's so much character. They're beautiful firearms. They were made well. And I mean, to be quite frank, they are the foundation in which every firearm of today's modern society has essentially been based on. Now, they're not always going to be identical spitting images. However, at some point in time, each firearm manufacturer, each inventor, engineer has looked back in time, especially in the World War II time era, and copied some homework and changed up the answers a little bit in order to improve upon an existing platform and push the envelope further, making a more successful and just more capable weapon system. And what I think is so neat about these World War II weapons is that they were the beginning. They were the founding fathers. And that's what's so awesome about this, is that you can take these old, outdated, antiquated firearms and make them modern with just a couple of mods. And in fact, I would say they would prove themselves today, whether it's in a battlefield or whether it's, you know, police force or something like that. These things, they're still very capable firearms. And that's what I love, that we can take this antiquated not a piece of crap, but it's an antiquated firearm, and make it modern and make it extremely useful again. And I love that. So if you guys have been here, you know this isn't the first time I've taken a World War II weapon and tuned it up like a NASCAR pit stop. Guys, we did the M1 Garand. That was a phenomenal gun. We took a barrel blank from Criterion, made it into 6.5 Creedmoor, put an adjustable gas plug on it, put a can on it, we put an optic on it, we got a rail system on it for a weapon-mounted light, and also a PEC 15. I mean, that's pretty sweet. And it's a very useful rifle, 6.5 Creed. That's a very good round. In fact, the military, they're adopting that cartridge at a very high rate. SOCOM, Special Forces, yeah, pretty cool. Same thing with the 1911. I did the 1911 because hardly a more iconic firearm, hardly a more handsome and beautiful firearm. But let's make it more fun to shoot. Let's port it. Let's drill it for an RMR. Let's get a weapon-mounted light rail on there. It's just, there's so much charm. They're so elegant and they're so classy and they're just timeless. And I love it. So to complete the trifecta, we had to do the M1 Carbine. So the M1 Carbine, let's talk about the history first and why it was so successful and one of the most prolific firearms of all World War II. So in a time where everything, essentially, as a standard infantry rifle, was bolt action, some long action, kind of not necessarily a magnum cartridge, but yeah, a heavy hitting, a lot of powder and a lot of recoil kind of cartridge. The M1 Garand, that was absolutely revolutionary. That absolutely positively changed the game and changed the entire landscape of warfare in small arms. So we have this firearm that is way more capable than anything else out there, period. And it's semi-auto. It holds 8 rounds. That's fantastic. You mean I don't have to work a bolt every time I pull the trigger? I can just pull it until it goes ping. Beautiful. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But the problem with the M1 Garand was not necessarily that it was too good of a rifle, it was that it's going to be heavy. It's a heavy gun. The M1 Garand loaded, probably like right around 10 pounds. Not to mention 30-06. It's not punishing recoil, but it's it takes a little bit of getting used to. You know, new shooters who shoot an M1 Garand, they're like, dang, that thing kicks. Or even myself, like, I noticed the difference. So it was a heavy gun and it had a lot of recoil. Not to mention, folks back in the 40s, they were just built different. Average height, like 5'9", 5'10", 140 to 160 pounds. Like, that's a light dude today. Like, that's an underweight human being as far as today's standards. So we decided, hey, we need something lighter, something that our support troops can handle and who just aren't in the front lines of combat, but still need some sort of personal defense weapon. In comes the .30 carbine. So coming in at just under 6 pounds, it's like 5.8 pounds. That's light. That's crazy light. Not to mention, it's chambered in a .30 carbine, which is a 30 caliber round, 110 grain bullet, and still a very respectable amount of stopping power. Not to mention, it came with 2 different stocks. So what we have here is the paratrooper metal wire stock. And of course, there's the original all wood stock. That's the one that you're going to see the most of in conflict. Really, the only people who fielded the actual paratrooper stocks were the paratroopers. Very, very prevalent Normandy campaign. You did kind of see it start to get phased out over the course of the war, and mostly because, I'll be honest with you guys, the wire stock sucks. We'll get to that and we'll kind of talk about the firearm, the fit and the feel and everything, but it was a very successful firearm. And the thing of it was is that it was never really intended for frontline combat as a main infantry rifle. That was the M1 Garand's job. That was the LMG's job. The carbine was not necessarily a rear echelon gun. While they definitely did use it and use it quite a bit, it was more for like support. Think of arty guys, think of mortar boys. So they got to carry around a significant amount of equipment. You got to carry the sight, you got to carry the tube, you got to carry the base, you got to carry the mortars. That's a lot of weight. It takes a whole team. And when you need mortar support, you need mortar support. You're not necessarily right on the front lines shoveling mortars, being a stovepipe boy. You're typically going to be back off of that front line, meaning you aren't going to be using your standard issued rifle nearly as much as those dudes in the foxholes on the front line. So the carbine was perfect for dudes like that. It's light, they could sling it over their shoulder, and it's not going to be super cumbersome when they're carrying around all of those mortars and all of that gear. So, very successful rifle. In fact, it became extremely prolific, especially in the Pacific theater. So in the Pacific theater, Engagements definitely weren't as long distance and long range as you would see in the European theater. Very symmetrical, kind of open fields in the European theater. That's not to say, you know, Stalingrad and there was urban warfare, you know, places like that absolutely did exist. But the average engagement range in the European theater versus the Pacific theater, it was definitely longer. And the carbine really kind of shined there because you had 15 rounds in this guy. Very easy to reload, just a simple box magazine. Not to mention, within 100 yards, it does pretty daggone good. Getting hit with 110 grains of 30 caliber bullet within 100 yards, yeah, you're due for a bad day. So stopping power, it was pretty daggone good. Not to mention, ammo. It was light. You could carry hundreds and hundreds of rounds. You could carry 400 rounds of this stuff in your canteen pouch, in a musette bag, whatever. You could carry twice the amount of ammunition with 30 carbine than you could 30-06. And as we've learned throughout the years, yeah, more ammo, more gooder. The more times I can pull the trigger before going Winchester is always going to be more gooder. So it was a very successful firearm, and it eventually made its way to frontline troops. People were ditching their M1s, ditching their Thompsons. You even seen a lot of officers ditching their M1s for the actual carbine. So it's a very successful firearm, and the reason being for that is that it just simply worked. It was light, it was handy, and it had reasonable stopping power, especially within, I would say, 200 yards. At 100 yards, yeah, it's going to be a good time for you. Well, it's not going to be a good time for the guy on the receiving end. Not to mention, guys, there were millions and millions of these firearms made. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was over 6 million M1 carbines made. 6 million M1 carbines, and that was just through World War II, through the Korean War. So a significant amount, and we used these all the way up into Vietnam, all the way through the end of Vietnam in 1973. So a very prolific firearm, very iconic firearm, just very successful and handy piece of equipment. Okay, that was quite a rant, but I'm passionate about the M1 carbine, okay? I love the gun, and trust me, if you ever had the chance to handle one or shoot one, you would love it too. It's the only thing that's not relevant is the cartridge that it's chambered in. It's pretty much the only reason it still exists is for this gun 30 carbine. It's not that it's a bad cartridge, it's just that there's better ones out there. I can think 357 Magnum would probably be a better choice for this weapon. Even 44 Magnum, that would be kind of cool. I think 10mm would also be a really cool cartridge for this platform here, better than 30 carbine, but that's besides the point. So let's talk about my M1 carbine here. So what's really cool about this carbine is that it really didn't take any tuning. It didn't take any serious engineering to get it to this point right here and get it to be a very, well, 100% reliable functional firearm. So we have an 11.5-inch barrel in this guy. Barrels came at 17.75, which actually is a very funny story. So when the NFA was enacted, you guys all know the NFA. When the NFA was enacted, short barreled rifles were 18 inches. If you had anything less than 18 inches, it had to be an NFA item and you needed a tax stamp for that. Now, when the US military decided to phase these weapons out, it ended up in places like the Civilian Marksmanship Program, the CMP. Everybody's heard of that. Now, what is very interesting is that these guns, they aren't an 18-inch barrel. They are less than 18 inches. So the CMP gets all of these firearms and they sell them to the general public. And somewhere along the line, somebody finally realized that, hey, these aren't over 18 inches. We just sold thousands of these rifles to the public. And now they're all felons because they're under 18 inches and they're considered a short barrel rifle. So the NFA was actually changed to 16 inches. Essentially to make this legal. That is 100% why we have 16-inch guns instead of 18-inch guns. So fun little fact for you. This barrel's chopped to 11.5 inches and it's threaded 1.5 by 28. So it becomes just a little bit of a problem. When you chop a barrel in 30 cal that doesn't have a big enough diameter, essentially the contour of the barrel, to support 5/8 by 24. If you know anything about cans, when it comes to 30 cal, it's going to be 5/8 by 24. Unfortunately, there's not enough meat on the bone when it comes to this barrel, so we had to be threaded in 1/2 by 28. That's typically AR-15, something like 223, 5.56, and other small cartridges. Everything 30 cal is pretty much going to be 5/8. So that was a little difficult, but it was the only way to do it. So essentially to get the Knight's Armament can on here, it had to be threaded to 1/2 by 28. And then we used a muzzle adapter. So Knight's actually makes a 1/2 by 28 to their 30 cal cans. So that worked out really well. This is the 7.62 CQB can. It's a very short can. I think it was just a good fit for this firearm. Moving to the top, we have our end goal, which is an LAM, laser aiming module. It's for use with night vision goggles, and you can absolutely use this firearm with nods. It's super cool because the end goal is very powerful. It has illuminator with it and also has the actual laser projectile, and you can't see it with the naked eye. You have to have night vision goggles on. So it's very cool. Moving to the side, we got a Surefire weapon mounted light. That's just for, yeah, seeing in the dark. You guessed it. Seeing in the dark is a superpower. So yeah, we had to have one of those guys on there. Now you ask, what is this rail system and how does it get on there? So the rail system here is made by Utilimac. I probably butchered that. I'm really sorry. You guys will correct me in the comments, but it's very easy to mount. I mean, it takes no time whatsoever. Just pop the stock off. You place the mount shroud over top of the barrel, and underneath of it is a couple bands that you basically just Allen keys. So it's very simple to install. I have a couple gripes with it. It can move, especially if you don't torque it down really, really well, and then get a thread locker on that as well. See, when I put this on here, I just cranked it down to the point where, like, I hope I'm not crushing this barrel. And still, it ended up sliding over to the right. And actually, it ended up causing some malfunction issues because this shroud right here, it's just a little bit of heat shield, came over just far enough to kind of impede and drag across your op rod here. And unfortunately, that slowed it down enough to where it caused malfunction. So I would say if you're going to do it, make sure you crank it down and torque it down correctly, and make sure that you get a good thread locker on there. The thread locker is really going to help keep that in place. I didn't do that, and it caused me issues. If you put an optic on this though, that's where it's going to be an issue. You are going to have point of impact issues if this thing slides over. You are no longer going to have your zero. And in fact, kind of becomes a liability, because if you aren't hitting where you intend to hit, well, yeah, that's a liability. So I just don't know about this guy. It makes sense and it does work. It's just, you have to be very careful with it, and you have to kind of stay up on it, because if that thing rotates at all, you are no longer going to be accurate. You are no longer going to hit what you think that you are going to hit and what you're aiming at. So I don't know. Design, I don't know, 10 out of 10. Execution, 3 out of 10. Let's call it that. Now, moving back, this is right where you typically have the iron sights on your traditional M1 carbine. The iron sights on this guy, they are part of the receiver. So unfortunately, there's no way to actually get any sort of optic mount in this position without completely deleting those. So that's what I did. Called up my boy, D. Wilson Manufacturer. I said, hey, we're doing this. And he's like, oh God, all right, let's do it. So we put it in the mill, put the receiver in a mill, shaved that completely down, and then we took a steel Picatinny rail and just tack welded it on there with a TIG welder. Of course, made sure it was nice and level and, you know, wasn't canted or anything like that, but that was actually probably the most tasteful upgrade I made to the entire rifle, short of putting the can on it. I really like the idea of having a red dot on my firearm. It's so simple, point, shoot. No worrying about parallax issues or lining up, you know, your iron hoods and make sure the prongs are in the perfect position, or else you're gonna shoot a foot to the right at 200 yards. You put the dot on it, you pull the trigger, it's going to go there if you do your job. And that's what I loved about it. So it's just a very simple, short Picatinny rail, enough to get an Aimpoint T2 optic on there. I went with the Aimpoint T2 because it's pretty much one of the best red dots on the market, period. Durable, combat proven, fantastic. Aimpoint makes awesome stuff. So made sure that we put a little bit of a riser on here to clear the end gall. It's a pretty good height. Now your typical cheek weld, it's going to be touching right here, and that way you'd be looking right through your iron sights. But to be quite frank, you could pop a little bit of a chin weld. It's okay, and it actually works pretty well. The thing of it is about with this wire stock is that it's horrible. It's awful. If you've ever shot like AKs with wire stocks, it's kind of like, man, I really hope I hit what I am shooting at, because I don't feel very accurate behind this. And it's the exact same thing with this. This wire stock, it's not necessarily flimsy, but it can very easily just be pushed out. And what I have found was that when I go to shoot and I go to run like this, if I can't my rifle and tuck it in to my elbow here, yeah, we have a bad time. When I'm shooting, I take it here and it's like, oh shucks. And then you go to pop the gun back up and then you're gonna bust your chops with a nice little steel metal wire stock, which is absolutely no fun. It's very simple mod you can make to this. Basically, open it up, lock it up, drive a screw through the piece of wood and it will no longer be able to fold in. A lot of people have done that. Even troops did that in World War II. It's a very simple mod, and to be quite frank, I don't think anybody was really running around with these things folded in or anything. Basically, they jumped with them folded in, and they didn't even really need to do that because most of them jumped, especially after Normandy, with their rifle in hand, ready to fight. Anyways, the stock, yeah, the metal folder, man, it's just it's rough. It's not great. There's a little bit of wiggle in there, and that's still considered locked open. So under recoil, yeah, not much fun, but it's cool, and it takes down a little bit of weight, so I'm okay with that. Now, what's super cool about this paratrooper stock is that you actually have a built-in pistol grip. I really like it, especially when you compare it to like the M1 Garand, the old school way to grip a rifle. Nobody really made a rifle with a pistol grip back then. So yeah, this was pretty cool. This stock was actually, if you think about it, kind of, yeah, it was very intuitive. It was a very good design on paper, but execution, I don't know. The chunky grip, this grip, I'm telling you, is chunky. If you guys ever gripped an AR-15, it's nice, it's slim, it feels good in your hand. You grab a Glock, you grab a 1911, yeah, like it feels good in your hand. This thing here is like gripping, I don't know, like a tree log. Like it's just a giant branch. It doesn't feel very good in the hands, but it's very usable. I do like it. Now, let's talk about how the gun runs. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this thing is it is so awesome. It is so much fun. First of all, the .30 carbine, it is not a super fast round. So running it with a cam, it's extraordinarily quiet. It is so quiet, and it's very, very pleasant on the ears. What's also cool about .30 carbine, and this weapon in particular, is that the recoil on it is it's non-existent. This thing it's like shooting a BB gun. There is no recoil whatsoever. This is an extremely soft shooting rifle. For a beginner, like this is the perfect beginner's gun if they want to get into rifles, antique rifles that don't want to shoot big 8mm 30-06 cartridges. It's just fantastic. There's no recoil with it. It's very manageable. Not to mention 15-round box mag. Woo, woo, woo. You can even get them in 30 too. The gun itself, it's so nimble. It's very, for all of this junk on here, yeah, it gets a little bit heavier. I would say this thing, fully loaded, is probably around like, I don't know, 8.5 pounds. So yeah, like it's getting heavier, but if you decided to not go with the rail system and your light and your laser, and you did like a titanium can on there, this thing, oh my God, it would be so light. And it's so nimble. It's so easy to pop up and point, no recoil whatsoever. It's just a riot to shoot. It's like a pistol caliber carbine. It's the best pistol caliber carbine in my opinion. And it's the original pistol caliber carbine in my opinion. It's just it's a very utilitarian and just simple yet elegant and just a riot to shoot. The only real issue I see with .30 carbine is that it's a little bit more expensive to shoot than say your AR-15 up today. But it's still pretty reasonable. Rounds are typically around like 60-ish. I would say 60 to 70 cents per round depending on where you find it. You can find old gun stores, maybe they're selling it for like 30 to 40 cents a round. But you're typically going to pay somewhere around 70 cents. But that's okay because, you're not going out and blasting 1,000 rounds of this stuff a weekend. This is like a fun range toy, but it's also a very serious range toy as well. Like you could do some serious work with this. Overall, guys, it's just such a fun rifle. It's an absolute riot to run. And here's the thing. Do you need one? Yes. The answer is absolutely yes. So carbines are pretty easily attainable. The problem of it is that boomers want so much money for them, and you're gonna have to spend at least $1,500 to $1,700 to get a pretty good one. You can spend less than that, and it's gonna be a little beat up. It's gonna be a little rough, but right around that $1,500 to $1,700 is going to get you a pretty solid one. Now, to get the paratrooper stock, unfortunately, that's big money. So, if it were me and you wanted a paratrooper gun, M1 carbine like this, there's a cool place called Apex Arms. Apex Arms actually sells reproduction paratrooper stocks. It's fantastic. It's definitely the way to go. Now, do I recommend doing all of this stuff? That's up to you. I don't know. It depends on it depends on who you are. If you use the guns like I do, yeah, I would definitely recommend it because it's definitely a good quality of life upgrade, but they're still very useful with their regular iron sights on them. So, guys, we have a wrap. We have a wrap on the M1 Carbine Mod 69. fantastic firearm. It's definitely one of my favorites of all time. I don't foresee myself letting go of this one anytime soon. So guys, that's it. Remember and say it with me, run your gun and not your mouth, and we will catch you next time.